All right. Welcome. All are welcome to United Lodge of Theosophists, friends, inquirers, as well as critics. If yes, we're here to learn from you as well as to teach the truths that have been presented by the messengers and the masters. Um, the student or the inquirer should understand that the knowledge, or rather the information about the principles that are given out here, is best abstract and theoretical. It's only when the person or the student has begun to see this information operating within his or her own being and taking some kind of control does it translates to knowledge. And theosophy can be said to be a religion of knowledge. It disavows belief. So the impetus here is to search, seek, and find for oneself uh, that master within. It looks to no external authority. So therefore, the aim here is just to share and pass on information that has been brought forth by those in the past as well as those in the present. And the devotion here is, and the loyalty and the dedication is to keep up and maintain that service in order to help and teach others to, if the desire awakens itself, to be the better able to carry on the theosophical movement. The lodge has no officers, constitution, bylaws. The bond between and among the students here is essentially the common aspiration and inspiration to carry forth that which I've just stated. The association of the students here in the United States and throughout the world. Again, the dedication to the principles, the message, and the masters. The meeting today is entitled The Two Paths. We meet every Sunday at this hour, and also the first and third Sunday of each month. And another time we're studying the ocean of theosophy.
Today's reading is from the Voice of the Silence. The Two Paths. Saith the pupil, O teacher, what shall I do to reach to wisdom? O wise one, what to gain perfection? Search for the paths, but O Lanu, be of clean heart before thou startest on thy journey. Before thou takest thy first step, learn to discern the real from the false, the ever fleeting from the everlasting. Learn above all to separate head learning from soul wisdom, the I from the heart doctrine. Yea, ignorance is like unto a closed and airless vessel, the soul a bird shut up within. It warbles not, nor can it stir a feather, but the songster, mute and turpid, sits, and of exhaustion dies. But even ignorance is better than head learning, with no soul wisdom to illuminate and guide it. The seeds of wisdom cannot sprout and grow in airless space. To live and reap experience, the mind needs breadth and depth and points to draw it towards the diamond soul. Seek not those points in Maya's realm, but soar beyond illusions. Search the eternal and the changeless Sat, mistrusting fancy's false suggestions. For mind is like a mirror. It gathers dust while it reflects. It needs the gentle breezes of soul wisdom to brush away the dust of our illusions. Seek, O beginner, to blend thy mind and soul. Shun ignorance, and likewise shun illusion. Avert thy face from world deceptions. Mistrust thy senses, they are false. But within thy body, the shrine of thy sensations, seek in the impersonal for the eternal man, and having sought him out, look inward. Thou art Buddha. And now today's talk, the two paths.
Thank you. Friends, the first speaker spoke of knowledge. The talk today will delve into that a little bit more. And the second speaker read from the voice of the silence mention of the two paths. There are a number of mentions of the two paths throughout the theosophical literature, that being an important one in the voice. We can view the two paths. One, the path of spirituality. The second, the path of materiality. View it in many other ways, but it really gets down to the importance of knowledge and recognizing and being on that path towards spirituality. So every presentation of the wisdom religion has pointed to the existence of these two opposite paths, and has taught that man himself is free to choose and to enter either one. Such freedom is what makes man man, and sooner or later none can avoid the fateful choice. Humanity knows these paths to be good and evil. Every action is in some degree a choice between the two. So we don't make a final decision on this path we're going on. We make them every day. Every action we take relates to that. Excuse me. So spirit and matter represent the two poles of all manifested life. There is no standing still in nature. It's constantly moving, and therefore we must constantly move too. So everyone gravitates to one or the other of these two poles or paths. The path of evil is the path of matter, or of separateness. We have that somewhere, unity versus separateness. The path of good is the path of spirit, or of unity. In theosophical teaching, the two paths are summed up as mediumship or adeptship. The adept custodians of the secret doctrine present only such aspects of their wisdom as are called forth by the condition of humanity and the nature of the cycle. Never before during our historical period has so much occult knowledge been revealed to humanity at large, as is now recorded in the theosophical books. But the teachers made it clear that the karmic outcome of the knowledge now revealed is either adeptship or mediumship. Depending on whether we use the information in a constructive, beneficent way that unifies forces of life, or in the direction of the destructive and maleficent and separate forces. In the light of the septenary plan, which Theosophy elaborates on, HVV does, we have this plan of evolution of this earth chain. It's 7 globes. It talks about 7 globes and 7 rounds around the globes. So it is only when man has fully descended into matter shall he have reestablished once again his connection with every department of nature. That is the pilgrim's eternal journey. We go down into nature. Just one illustration of one round. Starting up here, the highest level of spirituality, where we all start from. We go down into matter. We learn as we go. We hit the bottom, which is the equal point between spirit and matter, and then we get on the ascending arc. And that's our process. Now we make decisions along the way individually, and there's groups and rounds and races and all that gets involved, and we have talks specifically on that. So we are all at various points in this process, but more or less humanity is about here. They have passed this lowest level of the point where spirit and matter is pretty well equal, and we're working our way back up toward spirituality through our own self-induced and self-devised methods as we go. So we must meet the karma of our previous planetary chains and chains along the way, just as the reincarnating ego now meets the karma of his former life and lives on this globe. So we're doing that on this globe. We've made 4 rounds in this globe. There are a total of 7 that are talked about in the Secret Doctrine and other theosophical literature. And this happens around the other 6 globes as well. So we have now in the Earth, which is the fourth one we're going around, and we'll be going around 3 more and so forth. That's the long run plan here. This is eons of time we're talking about, where we're going into matter and trying to, through our own self-induced and self-devised methods, help and teach others and grow in spirituality and grow in the ability to help the process. So in the rounds to come, humanity, like the globe in which it lives, will be ever tending to reassume its primeval form, that of a Dayan Chohanic host. And those who hear these other lectures know that the Dayan Chohans are our spiritual progenitors on the spiritual level, and the literature suggests, and this student doesn't remember, so he can't personally attest to this, that we were Dayan Chohans at a lower level. Let's go down here. A lower level in the process of starting our journey into materiality, and we are now learning more through our journey and eventually evolving to a higher level of Dayan Chohan. And we can talk about that if other students have different views. This was his take on what was presented. So the Atlantean race, in the middle of the 4th round, if we envision this as one, okay, the Atlantean race was here. They were at this pivotal point. They were very advanced on the spiritual side, but their moral history, they took advantage of their opportunities because they knew so much about working with nature, maybe not in the correct way, but they worked with nature. They knew the laws of gravity and so forth, and they got very destructive in the process. So we are now reaping the effects of what they put in motion at that time, and it's often said that we are reincarnated Atlanteans living out the karma of that period. So this problem of good and evil and the Atlantean situation is referred to in the first book of the Secret Doctrine on page 192. It was, as we shall see, it says, at this period, during the highest point of civilization and knowledge, as also of human intellectuality, of the 4th Atlantean race, that owing to the final crisis of physiological spiritual adjustment of the races, humanity branched off into its 2 diametrically opposite paths, the right and the left-hand paths of knowledge. Thus were the germs of the white and the black magic sown in those days. The seeds lay latent for some time to sprout only during the early period of the 5th, which is our race. And this is very important to grasp, because in the middle of the fifth round, and the literature lays it out in great detail, another and still greater karmic adjustment will take place for the egos constituting our humanity, which is us. It is then that the final moment of choice in this Manvantara will arrive, and a separation will take place for the remainder of the 7 rounds. Mr. Judge refers to this separation on page 59 of the Ocean of Theosophy as follows. At the present day, Manas is not fully active in the race, as desire still is uppermost. In the next cycle of the human period, Manas will be fully active and developed in the entire race. Hence the people of the earth have not yet come to the point of making a conscious choice as to the path they will take. But when, in the cycle referred to, Manas is active, all will then be compelled to consciously make the choice to right or left, the one leading to complete and conscious unity or union with Atma, the other to the annihilation of those beings who prefer that path. Whoa. So it is important to consider the present position of our root race, the fifth, and to take heart both the opportunity and the warning of this decisive period. We find in the Secret Doctrine 2 of Volume 2, pages 300 and 301, it says that we are in the Manasa matter period of our cycle of races, or in the fifth, and have therefore crossed the meridian point of the perfect adjustment of spirit and matter, or that equilibrium between brain intellect and spiritual perception. It is in the fifth that the full development of Manas as a direct ray from the universal Mahat, a ray unimpeded by matter, will be finally reached. Nevertheless, as every subrace and nation have their cycles and stages of developmental evolution repeated on a smaller scale, it must be the more so in the case of a root race. Our race, then, has, as a root race, crossed the equatorial line and is cycling onward on the spiritual side. But some of our subraces still find themselves on the shadowy, descending arc of their respective national cycles, while others, again the oldest, having crossed their crucial point, which alone decides whether a race, a nation, or a tribe will live or perish, are at the apex of spiritual development as subraces. So it says we're sort of at various points around this circle. So the great teachers have given us a bird's eye view of just where we stand as pilgrims in the cycle of incarnation, or also known as the cycle of necessity. To be lost in this limitless desert of illusion and matter called earth life is to be caught up in the path of evil, or separateness, or psychism over there, and materialism, empty religious ritualism. All those that's where we would be caught up in if we don't progress on the spiritual side through our own efforts, because we keep pulled on this every time we walk down the street. So the entire purpose of the eternal theosophical movement is to save as many as possible from such a fate, and we are workers in this whole movement. HPB says in the Key to Theosophy on page 36 that had the formation of the Theosophical Society been postponed a few years longer, 1/2 of the civilized nations would have become, by this time, rank materialists, and the other half anthropomorphists and phenomenalists. And then the Master's letter, with respect to her statement, says, the intellectual portion of mankind seems to be fast dividing into two classes, the one consciously preparing for itself long periods of temporary annihilation or states of non-consciousness owing to the deliberate surrender of intellect and its imprisonment in the narrow grooves of bigotry and superstition, a process which cannot fail to lead to the utter deformation of the intellectual principle. The other unrestrainedly indulging its animal propensities with the deliberate intention of submitting to annihilation pure and simple in case of failure, and to millenniums of degradation after physical dissolution. Those intellectual classes reacting upon the ignorant masses which they attract and which look up to them as noble and fit examples to be followed, degrade and morally ruin those they ought to protect and guide. Between degrading superstition and still more degrading brutal materialism, the white dove of truth has hardly room whereupon to rest her weary, unwelcome feet. So the two paths are thus clearly delineated in the doctrine. As we make our choices now, in the many seemingly small and unimportant events of life, so will we choose at the time of the great and last choice in the middle of the fifth round. Choose ye this day whom ye will serve, the biblical teachings say in a sort of theosophy. So to help us choose, the Masters have put forth the doctrine of universal brotherhood. So to say a few more things about the roads, the two paths here, which can be thought of as the high road and the low road. Talking about honesty and dishonesty, these terms are moral, unmoral, and these kinds of terms have no validity with the soul in any sense that we embodied souls give to them. The soul sees things as they are with direct and uncolored vision. So the soul is here. Its integrity is complete. There is no consideration of honesty or morality in such seeing. Only as we step down this direct perception through the sheaths of the personality into the realm of relativity and attempt to evaluate it, only then do such concepts arise. We use them as measuring sticks, gauged as to accuracy by the ever-changing standard of our own theories of measurement, and lose ourselves in the mazes of relative truth. So the only Maya that there is for each of us is the one we create for ourselves. Its dissipation can be effected only by us. To perceive a fact implies no matter of honesty or dishonesty, but to act directly in the light of that perception. If we do that, then it does really imply such. So if we can sense this, we are already on the road to honesty, the high road. But most of us are afraid because this road is narrow, but it is narrow, and it has a steep cliff on each side. And but by the same token, it is the safest road we could possibly take. It's a one-way road, has no turnout, and is completely safe, the most completely safe in any world. So the issue is when we're on this road, we cannot think of ourselves nor of our machines during the passage. We have to concentrate upon our driving. So this road calls for self-forgetfulness and concentration, self-reliance, and ignoring side issues. So veracity is not and cannot be complete while we have fear. So we're not fearful on this path because if we're honest, we don't have fear. They are direct opposites. Honesty acts like a perfect searchlight. One sees and knows for what it is. Nobody with any courage at all is ever afraid of what they can see. The light itself is the soul, the power to know, plus whatever of perfect knowledge it has acquired. The very first step is in preparation for the journey is to be honest with ourselves. Every further step follows naturally on this one. Once taken, the journey itself is already underway, and the ride is natural and exhilarating. We wonder how we could ever have found pleasure and a fleeting satisfaction in traveling the low-flung roads. So to be honest with ourselves is to gain knowledge, not theories of what knowledge actually is. We think we can get it out of books, but knowledge is a distillation of what we read and become aware of in our daily experiences, the sensations, thoughts, and feelings we have about things, and the things themselves, not the things themselves. We assume that knowledge is something remote, different, special to be spoken to us by somebody else. We imagine that our soul, as a separate entity apart from us, will speak to us. There are few ways and means within the imagination of mankind that we do not conjure up from time to time and actually believe. So knowledge might result from any of these circumstances, but nobody can take knowledge as secondhand. To be honest with ourselves is actually to gain knowledge. So we find ourselves in many situations, and if we're, in this student's view, fortunate, we find ourselves trying to put theosophy first. So we try to study, attend and participate in meetings, give money, try to interest others, and otherwise we try to be a perfect students. But we can even get complacent at this. And then some ordinary experience along the street comes along and jolts us out of our complacency, and we come to realize that we do not make theosophy first, but that we're making ourselves first sometimes. So we have to be jolted, even as students, sincere students, to wake up, keep our pretenses dropped, and move ahead along this path toward complete honesty. Complete honesty, again, is perfect knowledge. Monadic evolution is expansion of the knowledge of sense of self. It is not an outside thing, never was, never will be. It results from inner effort in evaluating outside things together with the experience garnered from them. It is symbolized and realized by a series of progressive awakenings on the road of honesty. The first rift in our self-picture, like the one we just discussed, cracked by some event that upsets us, is the primary awakening of the series. Others follow, for nobody can stand still. The great awakening is the sum of them all, the consummation. So that's our road to honesty. That's the road to spiritualism, and we can stop. This student will stop talking. And it sounds like another student is interested in talking. So you have a question or comment? Yeah, could you grab the mic and do it?
Excuse me. Just a few thoughts come to mind listening to you present the topic. Um, the two paths you mentioned, the left and the right hand path, right? Now, one leads to positiveness, good stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, not to be too literal, but that expression, as above, so below. So, a person who is left-handed, meaning, how does I mean? Okay, you got. I know in theosophy you have the duality, day and night, hot and cold, stuff like that. So, a person who hearing what you're saying and the left, and you have the right, the left meaning revolutionaries, radicals, and things of this sort, as well as beyond that, and then the right, conservative stuff like that. Does these decisions, how do they filter all the way down to everyday human life? Like a person who's left-handed, does that suggest other than because we know in theosophy there's no chance, luck, or accident. So is that in some kind of way indicative of where in a former life they were leaning, or did you come across anything that would suggest what I'm alluding to? I'm not putting it
You're not going to offend left-handed people,
or right, you know what I'm saying? This idea of left and right.
Which one? Okay, I see what you.
Yeah.
I think I see where you're getting to, but you might need to help me along too.
Well, excuse me.
But certainly, we are a continuation of our prior lives and so forth, and we're here to keep building on that and deal with our karma of the past. And this student supposes, and another student wants to jump in. The left-handed versus right-handed, that's part of the karma, which may be good or bad of the past. So jump right in, student on the front row here, and see what we want to add to this.
Well, we had a talk on the pineal gland, and in that talk we had discussed the left side of the brain and the right side of the brain, because the left-handed people are controlled by the right side of the brain and the other by the left side of the brain. And in that talk it was specifically said, this is biological information by the way, that the right side of the brain is spiritual, is cosmic, and the left side is analytical, and it is a faster moving side of the brain. Its brain waves are from 14 to 21, and the other side, the spiritual side, which is cosmic, is from 3 to 13 waves per second. So if you want to put that in a larger and application where that translates to the other 6 sheaths of the human person, you may do so, but that's the biological answer to the student's question, that the two parts of the brain is co-joined in the middle, but each side, each sphere does a particular task. And who was that person who had the bleeding into the brain and put a YouTube explanation?
The Harvard professor, she was actually a brain researcher.
Right.
Joan.
Do you all remember?
Holt, was her last name Holt?
I don't know.
Anyway, yeah, she's on the internet.
She's on the internet, and she had this experience
right.
actually where there was bleeding into her brain, and she said when the left side was in charge, she was in her physical body, but when the right side was in charge, she lost the periphery of her body, and she became one with her environment. She became cosmic. She got absorbed into it. So between that play between right and left, and she lost the capacity to talk. and so she had to physically figure out how to dial the phone to get through to the site where her job was, so that they would send help to her. I can't remember her name, but it's on YouTube.
I've seen in the Kabbalistic system the idea of a sort of middle pillar where it combines the sort of greed-based desire to receive with the positive intent to then share in a way that's a paradox. And maybe in Hindu, the idea of Shiva as creative destroyer, where he destroys to make an even better universe. Does the theosophical system allow for that idea of sort of a merger where you can see spirit and matter? You know, you get the best of both worlds potentially.
Well, when we're in this world, this student was thinking too, you know, this is a clear path. This is a clear path on the spiritual level. You know, when you're looking at it from you know, there's no gray matter, if you will. But we live in gray matter. We are in the material world, so we live in the kind of thing you're talking about. I mean, the Buddha says the middle way, you know, and you know, it's not to get too excited about stuff. You know, just get in. You know, if you are faced with something, you deal with it, and you learn from that experience, and you go to the next item, and so forth. So, in the physical world, in the material world, we have to work toward that middle way, if you will, and stay with it. But by so doing, we have to always keep these things in mind. We never act for self, we act for all. If we find out we're acting to try to take care of ourselves, that's fine as long as it takes care of everybody, because we're part of the all too.
I just wanted to say that it's a comment. The Buddha also gave a directive. It's eightfold, and in that one it states that we're always going to be in matter until we grow out of it. So we have to figure out how to use it to the benefit of all, because without a physical body we cannot exist on the earth plane. And the first of those recommendations is to be aware of our consciousness and our perceptive powers, and not to give in to our feelings.
Exactly.
And that even when we choose a profession, it should not be at a cost to someone else. That we need to earn our livelihood without harming anyone else. And HPB's recommendation is that we cannot do good to ourselves on those planes without doing good to all.
Exactly. Yeah, it's this student was thinking about the real reason why we come down into matter is stated that we are really representatives, if you will, of the universal principles on the material plane while we're in the body, and we're here, if you will, we're gods in training. We're also here to move along all of nature, to help nature, and that's the idea there, that you've got to maintain your balance and be positive and all that.
So, right, in this, excuse me, in this drama, because this student views it as a drama, this evolution of soul, and you have, for instance, people in the scriptures, universal scriptures, you always have the protagonist and the antagonist. The devil would be, let's say,
the devil's side, yeah.
Okay, well, and I'm just being narrow in the interpretation of it, was a very high being who, through pride and vanity, et cetera, is on the other side. So it's for the evolution, the devil is needed. In other words, he represents the tester, the tempter, et cetera, in this drama as the soul life unfolds. Okay, but now that was a high being initially at a beginning of a large evolutionary cycle. But now the beings who are coming up through matter, who are progressing their choices that they make to become, let's say, on the negative side, like the Black Magician, the Darth Vaders, the Lord Voldemorts in the Harry Potter series, stuff like that. They seem to be the one. I'm trying to, because you mentioned the word annihilation, okay? So the people who make conscious choices through their sensual life or whatever they want to do, they get stuck in matter, stuff like that. They seem to be annihilated, as you mentioned, in some point in time, whereby this high being who serves as a tempter, you know, it's like he or they, those who come under that rubric of the negative ones, they seem like they have a function to serve in testing these souls that are evolving, whereby these souls that are coming up making these choices, they are annihilated, as you say. So what happens to the big ones up top at the end of a cycle, those who were employed, that's their job, you know what I'm saying, in terms of
what happened to Darth Vader?
Well, that was an individual who came from the beginning going to the top. But in the case of these very high spirits who are employed to test and tempt, are they more than just personifications of the powers of nature, in other words, or do you actually have built within the system of this soul evolution high beings that's their function, even though they may appear to be negative in this drama of life, you know?
Well, I mean, it said you can. That it's many. We have many opportunities to fall off the wagon, and we have many opportunities to get on the wagon, I guess. But we're working toward that moment of choice, and how this plays in with what you're talking about, this student really doesn't know. But yes, the devil, if you will, the way this student understands the play out, was a fallen angel, if you will, one who is in the mix under the all, if you will, who is there, part of our training program. That's the way this student sees it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, there are higher levels in the spiritual world as well as the material world to get us off the path, the beaten path, to tempt us, if you will, as Jesus talked about the snake and so forth. But yeah, that's the process of going through this whole cycle, is to try to overcome all this and stay on the path as much as possible, and we have to do it every day with the decisions we're making every day. If we can't just wait until the moment of choice and say, okay, I'm going to do it this way, because by then we're very entrenched in our process.
It's a very interesting representation, and often traditionally it is perceived very simplistically that there is a path 1, path 2, and there are those who follow the good path and those who follow the wrong path, and then there is the friction or the battle of the two. Something that I've been trying to practice is the notion of complete neutrality. That there is actually complete neutrality of situations and complete neutrality of us when we enter those situations. And in that neutrality, we choose the path 1 or path 2, each of us. That we can give the situation positive meaning or we can give situation negative meaning. And then we start creating the path. So the path actually starts in the neutrality of each of us, in the very initial thought, how we'll react to situation that we immediately perceive as on path 1 or path 2. And that's very difficult, because you often realize how this negative path is already entrenched in your mind that is from the matter, and how you have to pull yourself out and say, no, the situation is neutral. How about you believe that it is positive and give it a chance?
Yeah, that's putting rubber to the road here, and trying to figure out, hey, we have to have discrimination, and we have to do the right thing, and staying in that middle way is a challenge, second to second, and be positive and all that. Yeah. Yes, you had another comment?
Yeah, just a comment, trying to formulate a question. You know, when a person looks around and you see the lion, you know, killing the little sheep or something like that, you say, oh, how awful that may be, but we understand that that's the process of life, you know, in that particular kingdom. So coming to the this spiritual kingdom, I'm just thinking about this point of annihilation again, and how well we see in the animal kingdom that's just a form. That's not the life being destroyed. That's the form that the life is in being destroyed in that process at that level. So this form in the annihilation of bodies again, this is just another. The form is being destroyed, meaning that when these annihilations come from a spiritual point of view, that life is life, and we who are stuck in life, living in matter, we may cling to life, you know, like Taha, the thirst for life itself, something like that. But having risen above earthly life, the perception is kind of different from those from that point of view. So when we may view it as negative in terms of even on a physical level as a holocaust, or even on a spiritual level when they talk about this annihilation. So these, just like in the animal kingdom, those forms are destroyed. So here you have on another level, these forms are destroyed here because I'm just thinking about, you know, how they say not being too attached to life. Like if you have 1 foot, think of those who have no feet, you know, and something like that. So it's this idea of getting away from life. Life is, according to those immortals, a disease to be in a body. This disease of mortality, they say. So I guess this student is just reconciling in his mind the idea of this destruction again of all these egos again. So that's just a comment I'm just looking at in terms of this destruction.
Well, you know, that's just part of the process and the cycles and so forth, and the destruction of the ego, which we were talking about at that moment of choice. I mean, it's still a continuing process at that point, and you know, there are egos that are coming through and so forth. So, but if we keep in mind that we are here to do something, we're here to make a difference, you know, and you have to be positive to do this. We're here to make a difference. We're here to help nature, and if we help nature, nature is going to help us, you know. And keep in mind that not be selfish about it, but if we're helping for the common good, everything is going to go much better.
I would like to make this statement because we read it in Mr. Judge's Ocean last week, that the mind in man is dual. The higher is always attracted to its root, which is buddhimanas. Mm-hmm. And the lower mind, which is a reflection from the higher, is immersed in intellectuality because it works with the physical aspect of us. And in that passage it said, when the lower mind loses its attraction to the higher mind, that there is a severance. In other words, the human being becomes soulless. And HPB says in her article, we elbow these individuals with no souls in daily life. And just because we're in the theosophical movement, not to think that this malady cannot occur to us as well, because there are students who go and put themselves under some teacher, supposedly in quotation mark teacher. She wrote an article in 1888 making the statement, do not go and put yourselves under anybody's care. In other words, the guru that will come to you will automatically do so when you have cleansed yourself and you are ready to be instructed. That guru is a gift from the gods, because That guru is part of the gods. It has become a perfected being. But the ones out there that claim to teach and charge money for it are black magicians. She says, and they make sure they prepare thousands and thousands of students in opposition to this philosophy. So there is that possibility that severance occurs and we become soulless, and those are the ones that get annihilated in time.
Soulless. Okay. Yeah. Well, we talk about this a lot. Okay.
Can you please put the severance in between the
Okay.
antaskarana there?
Okay. This is the higher self you're talking about. The lower self. This is our passions and desires, etc. Those are the things that we need to get in line to support the common good, which is the higher self, which is one with the all. You're talking about the Tuscarora Bridge here.
Yeah,
and that's what we're at right now, and most of us in our current state of development has this Tuscarora Bridge here, and we're still working to do that. Now, if we do it right, and we recognize, that we have to develop this knowledge as opposed to intellectual understanding and following some Tom, Dick, and Harry that comes along. We then combine, we merge these two together, okay? Because you've got a higher mind and a lower mind is talked about. There's only one mind, okay? So these eventually come merged together, and if we develop this knowledge, we become a light unto ourselves for all to follow, or to all for an example for all. If we don't, if we're just following that person, this will not develop in that way. It'll just develop in the opposite way, and you become a medium, a black magician. You can become soulless, and you get into that lower path. Yes.
You're annihilated.
So we got to do it. We got to develop our. We have to make this our own and practice it. Like the first student said, make it us. Make it part of us. That's the way we learn it.
Just several words here, just bringing certain things to thought in this student's mind. In that you mentioned Atlantis, we talk about black magicians, and there is a phrase associated with the Atlanteans, black with sin. Again, so somebody new to theosophy coming in who's just on a physical level, hearing that term, black with sin, it's there again, as above, so below. One would think it's just like when we say left hand, left-handed person, right-handed person. This is by way of comment. This student knows that it's referring to the astral body, but a student coming out and just hearing this might think that it's black bodies, they became black with sin. Whereas we know that it's internal, and those black bodies really refer to the ego occupying those bodies are new, karma less, it talks about within the doctrine there, and the bodies are the older bodies, just like somebody who vacates a certain community and leave the residents there, and new people move into that community. So older souls move on out and up or wherever, and younger souls come in. So that's just this student's take, and having working with that expression, so that initially it should show some growth on the part of this student about the idea of black with sin again. So just wanted to share that.
Yeah, you can't think of in terms of physical characteristics and so forth, because we as monads go through all these various stages. We could be black, we could be white, we could be male, female, whatever. In fact, we probably go through all of those processes, and it's not the skin color that's talked about when you talked about black with sin. Some of the finest people in the world may be what people call black. It's hard to, you can't do that. Any other comments? Oh, okay.
Actually, question, and maybe Tunjai also will help, and maybe the Prito. So I understand from Blavatsky that right now on the earth we have Atlantis still, some of them, and she said that it's a lot of them in the Indians, native Indians' bodies. And then we have Lemurians as well in Polynesia with their bodies. And then she said that they will go away. So, what you say, annihilated, but I understand that they will be, they are developing and they go to this fifth bodies. And about Atlantis, they had this psychic abilities, very strong psychic abilities. So those people who are still living in this Atlantis stage, so they still have this great psychic abilities. So, but they're developing, they're evolving. So in the fifth race, we lose this. So, what do you think about it?
Could you finish her question so that
We understand.
if you can.
I need to ask a few questions before I can say it.
Well,
I mean, what I heard, what I hear says that, you know, while we have perfect bodies, it says these days, we're going through all of these phases and this evolutionary process, and you know, different races become different. I'm asking for clarification now. You know, that's the kind of thing you're talking about. I think that's on the one side. You're talking to the Polynesians and so forth. Yeah. I mean, we're all a different. Remnants. We're remnants of other cultures, if you will. And
no, I mean these Lemurians, as I understand.
Lemurians
and Atlantis, they have this higher abilities, because Lemurians, they were still in the spiritual realm. Atlantis, they were still in spiritual. They have the high abilities, and we are in the fifth race. So, and we don't understand them, I think, because they understand.
Who are them?
The Atlanteans are us.
No, but some of them still.
No, they are us.
But some of them, as I understand, HPB, some of them are still living. And when we meet them, and they read our minds, and so for me it's like high abilities. I can read others' minds, but that's what I want to say. And what happens to them? So two questions. The first question is, I cannot. Sometimes I meet these people with these psychic abilities and.
Two free letters.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So you deal with people that have these high psychic abilities, if you will.
Yes, and then thinking, are you Atlantis, or are you already sixth race, or who you are, or Lemurian? I cannot understand, you know.
I kind of hear what you're saying, but
and Tunjai said about the teachers, and how to understand what the teacher is in front of you, because some of them
teaching what the teaching.
The teachers is here to guru, because some of them don't know theosophy, but still they know some other great things like Kabbalah,
Yeah.
So, did you understand pretty much where she's coming from?
I think I gathered that. How do we just sort out who the real teachers are from those who are just the black magicians to mislead us?
I think if you could formulate a question out of her commentary, was that basically you have people among us, and she's referencing how the Lemurians and Atlanteans had high psychic abilities, etc., right? And she meets people nowadays in this fifth race who have these abilities also. So who are these individuals that have these abilities in presently now? You know, are they draw remnants from that those earlier races, which are us, what Tuja was saying, and I think that's the crux of it right there. You know, that again in this time, the psychic thing is unfolding. Quote thing is unfolding. So yeah, you do have people on different levels, but we shouldn't forget that we cannot let the psychic eclipse the spiritual. You know,
That's what you got. We're all a little bit of all of that stuff. Okay, and that's what you're saying. In the spiritual side, if you're on this side, then you've got it all lined up and you've got it all working for the common good. If you're over on that side, you could be just as developed psychically, etc., but not working for the common good.
Thank you.
So it's for the average person, it's probably very difficult to discriminate between the two. And bottom line is, that's why I said you gotta be your own individual in the end.
It's
Your own
actually
point
very
of-
simple.
Your own point of light. But
Okay.
we're going to try to bring it to a close. So Chris and then Tunjai.
Here, Chris.
I'd just like to comment that I can see that to a point there might be a collective reason for why that left-hand path is there. That they're serving the collective in a way that's sort of challenging people, maybe through influences to not follow. And because of that, I think it's more ideal that eventually those people get transformed rather than annihilated, even though that may not be within the framework of the planetary rounds.
Yeah, the idea of the annihilation comes up and it gets mentioned, but that's part of the process of evolution, if you will. I mean, you just go back through you get recycled, if you will, and if you need more experience, you can look at it that way.
Okay, what Chris said has tremendous impact.
Sure.
Because there was an example given. King Asoka of India, for instance, was a murderer. In other words, he was a warrior, he murdered all of his people until he came across Buddha's writings, and he converted to Buddhism and became the most beneficent king ever who lived on earth. So transformation definitely takes place.
Sure.
And the other one is given in the Theosophical writings is King Ferdinand, who was a butcher in one life and came as an emperor in the next, the most beneficent king. But he did not live very long. He had throat cancer and did not put any of his programs in place for humanity. Having said that, the other statement still stands. And to answer Marina's question, if this student understands it correctly, she's saying that these remnants are on Earth today. And HPB explains in the Secret Doctrine that it takes many, many, many thousands of years for the new race to develop amongst the existing old race, and that it overlaps one another for many thousands and thousands of years. And she mentions in the Secret Doctrine that some of the islands are Lemurian, and she particularly mentions northern China having remnants of the fourth race, that they're very spiritual. They do have psychic abilities, but they are sacerdotal. Is that the correct word? Yeah. And in other words, they were initiates in the Atlantean race, and they are still evolving, but they are not on the negative side of nature. They're evolving on the positive side of nature. But the two paths that took place in the fourth race did divide humanity into two. The one side, the left, was annihilated because it sank. Atlantis actually sank. It did not live through that calamity because the Atlanteans were using sidereal powers, according to the Secret Doctrine, to destroy land masses all around them, annihilating a whole bunch of nations that did not deserve to be annihilated. They were using their powers inappropriately. And she says the fifth root race learned all their higher knowledge from Atlantean master. Parasara is the one that is mentioned in the Secret Doctrine. And to answer the second part of her question, how do we tell if what we are doing is true to our nature? And you gave the talk just to make those points clearer today. It is very simple to this student's mind. We are to develop our own natures. We cannot rely on any external force, including someone who comes forward and says, I'm an authority in it, because that's psychic. The spiritual nature is the one that cultivates our higher aspirations without the student being controlled by the other person who is supposed to be a guru. The guru's responsibility is to inform. It is never done in any other way but from the master's mouth to the chela's ear. In other words, it's not written. It is
Chela has got to
telepathic.
make it their own.
It's telepathic.
Chela has the.
So, if the guru doesn't fulfill that criteria where you are spiritually cultivated rather than being controlled and money exchange occurs, then that person is not a true guru.
Okay, let's cut it off here. Thank you for all your input on this. Next week's talk is on, I've forgotten.
It's the Unfinished Man.
It's on Unfinished Man. Please join us here at 11 o'clock, 4865A Cordell Avenue, Maryland. Thank you.